Welcome to Talking Giants, presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. We got ourselves a Mailbag podcast. We're recording this before any of the election happens, so when you get this, you'll probably know. Justin, how are you?
Bobby Skinner.
Can you believe the third party finally won?
Oh, can you believe? Bobby Skinner and I will reveal.
Tony won.
And your buddy Juan. Why is Juan going to make a good vice president? Because you think he'd do a good job.
He just is going to keep Tony honest. He's going to keep him on his feet.
Yeah, we will reveal at the end of the show who we voted for. So stay tuned every single second.
Yep. Don't skip to the end because we're not actually going to do that. But please watch to the end, Justin. The bigger news is the Giants, the trade deadline in the NFL went and passed. A lot of smoke about Azeez Ojulari. I mean, I think he probably had the most tweets about him all day long about what the Giants were trying to get out of him. Darius Slayton the Steelers were apparently trying to get Darius Slayton. They ended up trading a fifth for Mike Williams, which I would assume if they traded a fifth for that guy, they would trade, either the same or more for as a better player at this point, cheaper and younger. Actually, they might be around the same age. But the Giants stood pat. They didn't make any trades, Justin. I know we've kind of talked about it, but where are you at with that now that it's come and gone and the Giants haven't made any trades? Which is the first time since 2021, and since 2017, it's only the second time that they haven't made any trades around the deadline.
Yeah. It certainly made sense. Not in a vacuum. If you're just kind of like fair weather fan that wants the team to sell and wants extra draft picks, I'm sure maybe you're not that thrilled, but I'm fine with them standing pat because Azeez Ojulari is a young player, 24 years old, last year of his deal, having a good year in terms of producing sacks and producing negative plays. The Falcons were the team that were the most interested. I think that was the team that was, from what I heard earlier in the day, which, hey, take what you want from me, but from what I heard earlier in the day, the Falcons were the main team that the Giants were talking to. The Falcons do not have a fifth or a sixth round pick in this year's draft. So the Giants were looking for that fourth. I think if the Falcons offered a fourth would have gotten it done. The Falcons did not offer that fourth round pick, so therefore the trade did not get done. I would have been cool if the Giants gave like this year's seventh round pick or next year's seventh and Azeez for an additional fourth round pick. Would have been a couple fourth round picks that the Giants would have in this year's draft, expected to get a comp pick for Bredesen and Xavier McKinney. I had that information right all day. I never got it wrong or tweeted at any incorrect information.
You had two things wrong. I had to text you. Like,
I know.
This is really wrong.
I know.
You need to delete this.
Never had it wrong. Podcast apps, YouTube, never saw it, never heard of it. But yeah, I'm fine with them standing pat. We talked about Slayton. I think Slayton's a player that's honestly worth extending for the Giants for another 2 to 3-ish year deal. With the Jalen Hyatt being a non-factor, cool with them not trading Azeez Ojulari. I would have been happy with the fourth round pick. Clearly, I think the Giants would have accepted that as well. Azeez is a contributing player as of right now. It does kind of suck that if he does leave at the end of this year, you get nothing for him, but also this is a player that's had health issues for the last couple years for the Giants, so I'm not slamming my fist on the table if he walks away from the Giants and we don't get anything from him. I think it's a treat this year. We were expecting Azeez Ojulari to be a 0. I think it's a treat this year that he's actually performed and played this well.
Yeah, Azeez Ojulari is the interesting one because I would have explored trades for him, and if they would have turned down a fourth round pick for Azeez Ojulari, I would actually been pretty unhappy.
I agree.
Because of Azeez Ojulari's injury history, because of the fact that he's not a starter, and despite the fact that he has 6 sacks and that's awesome, I don't think his sack production was matching what he was as a player. He's 49th out of 100 or so guys in pass rush win rate. I think he's a good player. He's a bad run defender. And the injury history. The main thing is the injury history for me because I don't want to invest anything significant in Azeez Ojulari. Now, here's the thing is, I know right now Azeez, people's thoughts of what he can get for a contract is probably at its highest because he's had all these sacks and he's in a starter's role right now. I don't think he's going to get this big deal because of all those reasons I just, laid out. And a team wasn't willing to give up a fourth round pick for a 24-year-old player, right? If he was someone who was going to get this big deal, like people have compared to Bryce Huff, which is crazy because Bryce Huff was top 5 in pass rush metrics. Like then a team would be willing to trade a fourth for that guy to get him in the building, help them win this year, and then look to extend him. So I don't think he's going to get this huge deal. And there's really the only contracts last offseason that were comparable players was Josh Uche, who got 1 year, $3 million from the Patriots, and then was traded to the Chiefs. And then the other one is Yetur Gross-Matos, which might have been mine and yours least favorite contract of the offseason. The 49ers giving him 2 years, $18 million.
Yeah, no, that's a bad deal.
He's done nothing for them.
It's a bad deal.
And he's just not that good of a player. He's a lesser player than what Azeez Ojulari is. So, but I'm not going to... I would like the opportunity to make a run to try and get him in and keep him as depth over a 6th-round pick. And a 6th-round pick that's going to be in the bottom half of the 6th-round pick.
Yeah, and
a 4th
I think
or
they
5th,
will.
I would have taken it in a heartbeat.
I agree with you. 4th or 5th. You would have been fine with the 5th? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I would have been fine with it because I don't fully know.
You're splitting hairs, but I would have been. But
yeah.
And here's something when it comes, because it's like, oh, they're trying to save their jobs. I don't necessarily agree. Hopefully not, that they're not doing this just to get through this season. And we'll talk about. I think Slayton should be here for another couple of years. So I was happy. I'll be very unhappy if they re-sign him, not because they didn't trade him at the deadline, because I think he should be re-signed for the next 2 years, and I'll pay him good money to resign. Where was I going with Ojulari?
About saving jobs.
With Joe Schoen. The one thing I actually think he's been just legitimately good at has been trades. Like, really, his only certified bad trade is the Boogie Basham one, and then you could say the Darren Waller one too. But I think he's been good at trades, and I think part of that is not just giving something to the highest bidder when the highest bidder is a 6th-round pick. I think part of that is standing pat, and that's how you get a 3rd-round pick for a Kadarius Toney, who's known as a huge headache and going to be my president. That's how you get a 2nd and a 5th for Leonard Williams. That's how you grind the Panthers down to a 2nd and a 5th for Brian Burns. I actually think you guys have listened to this show. I am not advocating for Joe Schoen is doing this great job, but I actually think the one thing he's been good at is trades, and part of that is not just selling to the highest bidder, because then you end up being the Carolina Panthers where you give guys away for nothing.
Yeah.
Even though they had a great trade with Mingo today.
Yeah, they did. That was the Cowboys' stupidity too. I agree with you. I would have been fine with the 5th. They were pushing for the 4th. Falcons didn't have a 5th-round pick to trade, or else that trade may have gotten done with the Falcons if they actually had a 5th-round pick. So
yeah, so that's just where I'm at. Where Slayton, I did not want traded unless you got some ridiculous offer, which wasn't going to happen. And then Azeez would have been more than happy to trade him. Again, I do not want to invest big, serious money into an injury-prone backup. I have no desire to do that. But I think having the chance to bring him back at a deal that could be cheaper than what people are thinking right now, I think is better than just offloading him for a 6th-round pick.
And if Kayvon comes back and Kayvon starts and Azeez Ojulari goes back to having a sack every 3-ish games like he was at the start of the season, then I think the value will go back down, or at least in the court of public opinion, the value is going to go back down and the contract can be reasonable versus, like if he gets like I'm not paying $9 million a year like a Yetur Gross-Matos for Azeez Ojulari, even if it's just for 2 years, right? I'm not doing that.
Think 2 for 12 with 1 year guaranteed. Like, that's the type of contract I like to get Azeez back on. If he gets that 2 year for 18, damn, sucks that happened. But I'd rather have the chance at the 2 for 12 than offloading him for, a bottom of the 6th-round pick. Like, it'd be in the bottom half of the 6th round.
Yeah.
And you guys know I freaking love getting 6th-round picks. I'm a junkie for that shit. All right, Justin, take it away, Steve.
Mail time.
Mail time. The mail's here. Come on. Here's the mail. It never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail.
Thanks, Steve from Blues Clues. Justin, let's get into the mail.
Oh, let's get into the mail, but first, we are doing something a little different because we got to fit 4 ads into the show. I want to talk to you about Factor First. I know, this is the first time that we've ever done this. But giant factor in this episode is doing an ad read before I tell you the first question. Notice how the days are shorter, but your to-do lists aren't? Oh, is that the truth?
Dude, you're preaching to the choir right now, Factor.
Power through your busy days with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. So easy to make and so nutritious and so freaking good too, because from breakfast to dinner and anything in between, Factor has easy, nutritious options to keep you fueled and feeling your best. I'll tell you what, we talk a lot on this show about stuff and products and this and that. Factor is something that I put my own money to. I pour my own money into it because I have long days going to New York City, commuting there and back, hour and a half there and back. And sometimes I'm tired. I got to come home and record more shows. And sometimes when my day's done, I want to pop a meal into the microwave that's going to taste good, that's going to fill me up, put it on a plate, put it in the microwave. That's the secret that they don't tell you. Put it on a plate, and it makes you feel like you're having a gourmet meal. You don't even associate that you're having a microwavable meal because it's that good. I love Factor so much, and you can head to factormeals.com/Giants50 and use code Giants50, get 50% off your first box, plus 20% off your next month. That's code Giants50 at factormeals.com/Giants50 to get 50% off your first box, plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. That's new, by the way. You would always get the 50% off the first box, but then 20% off your next month. That's new. That's awesome. You'll be glad you did, Bobby Skinner. Ready for the first question?
Yep, first question. Let's get it.
First question is coming from Wes Locke at Westy Westigles. Reports are McCloud was asked to take a pay cut. Do you think Joe Shane consistently asking for pay cuts from players who earn performance escalators like Slayton and tender players will have a negative effect on players? So if you haven't heard, Nick McCloud was cut and was released today. Apparently, the Giants did ask him to take a pay cut. I guess that answer was no. The Giants cut him midseason, and Nick McCloud is off the team, Bobby Skinner.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with McCloud if he gets picked up or whatever. They asked him this, I don't know, it was like a month ago or so, maybe a little before a game that he was starting. So I don't know if Nick McCloud, who's a backup corner, is having any impact on the locker room. I'm not going to overreact into that, but I know it doesn't help. But I don't think it's having this big issue, and it's just part of the process in the before cutdown day. But what do you think about that? And honestly, like, I know McCloud's a backup and stuff, but like, he is the first backup at nickel corner. He's the second backup at outside corner, and he's been used. But they, first chance they got once guys got healthy, they axed him for basically about $1 million in savings.
Well, the Giants are desperate at this point, right? Because I think, according to Over the Cap, they just have $1 million in cap space right now. I mean, is that the move? Is that really the move that's going to help you? I would have been cool if Nick McCloud was a backup player here for a long time, Bobby Skinner. Like, I thought that McCloud could be kind of like a glue guy. He's been here since the first year of Joe Shane, almost thinking of him as like a Julian Love light for defensive backs instead of a safety, right? Kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. We can go in the nickel, we can play the outside, and we can be okay. And Nick McCloud was, I viewed him as a valuable player with that in mind. And I think it's a shame that they had to cut him. I don't think it has this ramifications on the locker room because the Giants haven't asked anybody besides guys with these performance escalators to take cuts like this. They've only, I think Darnay Holmes, they asked this, Slayton, they asked this, and they did it. They asked McCloud this, so I would have to go across other NFL teams, right, and see if other NFL teams are doing this. Like, are you like almost penalizing these guys that get these performance escalators by cutting them or asking them for pay cuts? I don't know if that happens around the NFL.
Yeah, it's just, now here's the thing is, talk about like, the season's over. This is a decision you make when you're 2-7. If they were 5-4 or 4-5, they probably don't make this decision. But this is the only instance of this happening since Darnay Holmes' last training camp, and it's not going to happen. There's just no other candidates for this to happen to for the rest of the season unless you want to cut Jason Pinnock. So I don't think this is a big issue. I just think Nick McCloud got the short end of a stick on a 2-7 team.
Yeah, and I mean also forget the record again. That their team cap space as of now is $1.166 million. I don't know if this is fully updated, the team cap space on Over the Cap, if it's updated, with the corresponding Nick McCloud move, but they're going to have to continue to do other things like they did in 2022, like they did in 2021 with the latter days of Gettleman. They probably will have to make other tiny little moves of elevating, re-signing guys, releasing guys, signing guys to the practice squad. They're going to have to do all this stuff to get through the year with their cap space, which is crazy to say, once again, about a losing football team.
Yeah, a team with the worst record in the NFL has to do that. So it's more of an indictment on this situation than the actual move in itself.
Yes, I agree with that. 100%.
All right, next question.
Isn't it crazy they're paying $3 million in dead money towards Adoree Jackson's last contract, but they're also paying Adoree Jackson to be on the team right now? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, they're gonna have to pay that regardless.
Yeah, no, I was just looking down at the dead money, seeing Leonard Williams lead the way, Darren Waller lead the way. The dead man, $29 million in dead money. That's not the main issue this year. Oh, here's something fun. Sean Sullivan at Sully Stone 7 asks, what will come first, an interception by the secondary or a blitzball ad? And you're in luck because the Blitzball Battle 5 ad is coming to you right now. We've got a new episode dropping soon, and here's a sneak peek of it.
Blitzball Battle 5 getting y'all set for game number 2 between Forgotten Rotten and Del Caribe. This is a fascinating matchup, right? You've got a 2-time former champion, Trevor Plouffe. Then he's got Shelfie. And Del Caribe, we know all about Lou Dab. He can get it done. The question is, can Joe's throw any strikes?
That is the number one question. We know what we're going to get from Lou. Trevor's going to tell us what we're going to get from Trevor throughout the whole game. It's about the other guys.
So what do you think?
And Shelfie's background, he's played in the Blitzball World Series 3 different times. He feels really confident. My prediction here is going to be Forgotten Rotten. I'm not even thinking about this one.
It's tough for me to go against Trevor Plouffe. I think they're going to win.
Also, Trev needed somewhere to put his chain.
So you stole it?
This is my baby gift from Trev. Not on the registry, but I accept.
Okay, so you two made your prediction. I'm going with Forgotten Rotten.
Yeah.
Del Caribe they didn't win a game in Blitzball Battle 4.
You're in my heart, guys.
Yeah, they've never beaten Forgotten Rotten in anything. But you'll have to tune in and see for yourself later today. Blitzball Battle 5.
All right, yeah, check out Blitzball Battle 5 on the Warehouse Games channel. I'm an umpire in that. Next question is coming from, we're gonna pair 2 questions together. I'm looking forward to these next pair of questions, Bobby, because this is the meat and potatoes of the show.
Meat and tomatoes.
The New York Giants with the J at Johnny Giants. Jaints. I think that's how you say it. What are 3 things you would like to see from Brian Daboll between now and the end of the year to feel comfortable with him as our long-term coach? Then the second question is coming from Strictly Giants at DJ Verano 37. What should we root for the rest of the season? Lose out for a better pick, but potentially have Daboll fired, or just try to win anything we can to show we aren't completely awful? So yeah, Bobby Skinner, we're at that point of the year where if you're kind of on the side of Brian Daboll, but you also want to lose games because you want a better draft pick, and everybody wants the shot at the best quarterback. But if Brian Daboll loses all these games, then Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen may lose their jobs. And we're in this funky little situation, once again, where fans are going to point fingers at each other and say, you're a shitty fan because you want to win games. You're a shitty fan because you want to lose games. And nobody's right. Nobody has control over anything because we're not on the team.
Let's do that because well, first, I'm so tired of the Giants putting us in this stupid argument every single year. Every single year. And it's like, damn you, Tommy DeVito, are you fans happy now? Are you happy? So last year, Justin, I wanted to lose games. It was the first time I ever just like openly just talked about tanking, because in the past I was like, I'm not talking about this. This is not real life. But last year, I thought that they were going to lose those games when Tommy DeVito went in at quarterback. Genuinely thought they were not going to win more than 1 game for the rest of the season. And they did. They won 4 more games on the rest of the season. So, but I wanted them to lose the games last year and tank. I also know that they will not make in-season decisions to tank. That is not that is not going to happen. So they are not going to change this. They're not going to bench Malik Neighbors. Now, the last game, stuff like that can happen, or 2 games. So stuff like that can happen. I also, Justin, even in the long term, realizing a win is not best for the team, can enjoy the short-term feeling of winning a game against the Panthers.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
And Giants players doing well enough. I can also do that. So if the Giants beat the Panthers this Sunday, I can enjoy that moment, even though at the end of the day, I would like them to have a better draft pick. And please don't call each other fake fans. Actually, you know what? Do whatever you want. I don't give a shit. But here's what I'm going to say, is if the Giants beat the Panthers on Sunday, I will enjoy that day. That podcast will be enjoyable talking about a win. I understand having a better draft pick is there. Now, last year I was all in on the tank because of the quarterbacks. This year I'm less invested in it because of the quarterback. And I think this team is not going to have a top 3 pick. Where last year I actually thought they were going to have the 2nd or 3rd pick once Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor were both injured at the same time.
We actually did get a question. It didn't make. We got a lot of good questions this week. I picked the rundown, and one of the questions was, "Is this the 2nd best team that we've ever covered in Talking Giants history?" Which I kind of think yes, right? Because 2022 is the best. This is probably the 2nd best team that we've covered, right?
Well, last year they won 6 games in a 17 game schedule. They won 6 games in 2020. No, I'd say 2020. That was a top 10 defense that year.
Yeah,
the offense got humming as the run game started going.
And right as soon as DJ got hurt, that offense was doing good stuff. So
probably 2020.
Yeah,
2020. 2019 is the 2nd best offense that we saw, but that defense was maybe the worst that we've seen in the time since covering the team.
I think they're more talented now than 2020, which is again a crazy sentence to say.
But here's that defense was pretty talented in 2020. Like you had Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence wasn't what he is now, but he was a really good player. Dalvin Tomlinson, B.J. Hill,
Blake Martinez
at linebacker, Bradbury at corner. Ryan Peppers and McKinney McKinney for half the season is a good safety trio.
Love,
Julian Love was in there.
Was that Isaac Idam?
Yeah, Isaac Idam was
Who's
in there.
Been like a starter in the NFL since.
Yeah. Kyler Fackrell was good for what, his contract was. On offense, the receiving room was Slayton, Tate, and Shepard, which is not great, but not bad either. I actually think that team was actually had a decent amount of talent on defense. But anyways.
I don't know if I have an opinion yet on what I want them to do, win, lose. I mean, obviously the season's over, so I don't have these thoughts in my head of the Giants can come back and make a playoff run. Okay, so yeah, I guess losing is better for the franchise, but I also went on these rants last year of recognizing that the more
they go 2-2, you shouldn't be crying and whine. Like, I guess if you want to, fine, but like, just realize they're going to try to win. Yeah, and that's how football is. There's going to be teams that are the worst, and those teams are probably going to end up with the worst record in the NFL. And there's going to be teams that are bad, and those teams are going to end up with the 6th to 11th pick. Like, that's just the reality. It's not them making a decision or, the 3 worst. The Patriots, Commanders, and Panthers obviously didn't have their pick. They didn't make a decision like, oh, you know what we're going to do? We're going to tank for this. No, they just sucked.
Yeah.
Like that. They sucked worse than us, and that's why they got Jaden Daniels and Drake May, and we didn't.
Yeah. And it is honestly, I mean, you could do what you want as a fan, but I hate the stupid fan policing. And if you tag me in something or if you call me out on it, I will defend like the whole rooting for wins thing, because it'll be Monday through Saturday that I will, we should lose. We probably should lose. And then I'm going to wake up Sunday morning, and I'm probably going to want the Giants to win a football game. Am I going to want them to win it as bad as I do week 1 and week 2 and week 3 when the season's live? No. But am I going to wake up hoping for a loss on Sunday? Also, probably not. Like,
because we don't control it. So if they're going to win,
control it. So who cares? Who cares? That's the whole point of this.
So
who
we're
cares?
Going to enjoy it.
I'm going to get to the first part of this question. What are the 3 things you would like to see from Brian Daboll between now and the end of the year? I wanted to include the second thing to kind of like fan policing is stupid. What are the 3 things you would like to see from Brian Daboll between now and the end of the year to feel comfortable with him as our long-term coach. I'm going to rip off 4 things, if I remember them correctly. Number 1, I would like to see Malik Neighbors get through the year at least externally, maybe internally and inside the building, there's stuff going on. But externally with the media, confident and kind of in line, which maybe sounds a little bit of like an asshole, like, hey, Malik Neighbors can't say anything, but hopefully you understand where I'm coming from. Like, don't keep Malik Neighbors in line where he's not causing any big problems. It's like, all right, well, Malik Neighbors had a good rookie year. He still believes in what Brian Daboll's doing, and he was a good soldier even though the team lost. That's number 1. Number 2, even if Mike Kafka leaves, I want the staff to remain intact from a relationship standpoint, where last year, people were throwing each other under the bus. Kafka was fucking pissed that he had to be here, but Kafka's an adult. Wink Martindale was not an adult about the situation. There was a power struggle between the two. So even if things continue to get bad, I want Brian Daboll and his staff to remain intact in terms of their relationship with each other. Dabes needs to keep his staff in line as well, keep everybody in a good spot. That's number 2. Number 3, continue to improve the run game and show consistency in the run game. It's been too inconsistent this year. It seems like they're finding consistency, but there's been plenty of times this year too where the Giants have a good game running the ball, and then they have some bad games running the ball. I want to see consistency out of this running game. And then number 4, I know they asked for 3 things. Number 4 is if a new quarterback comes in, let's continue this talking point that Brian Daboll can make most quarterbacks look decent and solid. When Drew Lock comes in, or even again, if it's Tommy DeVito, if we get to that point, I still want to have this talking point that Brian Daboll can do good things with quarterbacks. And maybe it just wasn't an anomaly in 2023 that Tyrod Taylor is just legit one of the best backups in the league. Those are my 4 things.
Yeah, mine is similar. Don't lose the locker room. Stay committed in adding layers to the run game. That's with you. Find a more effective way to run play action. They haven't been. They were good against the Commanders, but become a better play action team. As the run game gets better, and be a tendency changer on offense. That has been the biggest thing missing, just philosophy wise, since Mike Kafka hasn't been the play caller, is they don't throw tendency changers, and sometimes they even throw what are tendency changer plays, mesh, right? Mesh is a basic passing concept that is great on 3rd and short, and they've ran it a true version of it once or twice, and they've run the variation against it more than that, and it's just frustrating. You don't see the tendency changers enough. So it's that, but I don't have all these tangible things of what I want to see out of Brian Daboll.
All right, so I think that point of where you're talking about tendency changers and things like that, it does bring us to the next 2 questions that I have. Silverback at Denzel Warbucks asks, what gives you so much confidence in Daboll to select and mold a new QB? Josh Allen is the only guy on his resume, and he's a top 2 talent. Josh's breakout year was also the year that they hired a new QB coach, and Ken Dorsey. Nooner at One Giant Nooner. This is probably the most important question. Do you still have confidence in Daboll's offensive prowess despite being ranked dead last in points, Bobby Skinner?
I actually have more faith in him developing a quarterback than the offensive prowess part of this. I don't think he's this great offensive mind. I think he's a good and pliable offensive mind who adjusts to the personnel that he has. But as far as developing the quarterback thing, one, he's not an RPO play action merchant, but he does use it when it's there. He builds around quarterback strengths, and we've seen consistently him doing that, and doesn't have a system that he forces those quarterbacks into. Also, Josh Allen's development is the best we've ever seen for a quarterback. We've ever seen for a quarterback that was Josh Allen. Who else has developed from where they were to what they are now better than Josh Allen?
Yeah, and I want to interrupt you really quick. I mean, there are people that are comparing Anthony Richardson's numbers. You know how bad those were? I mean, there's graphics going around of Anthony Richardson in his first X amount of starts and Josh Allen in his first 10 starts, and they're putting them together as that's a reason for optimism and hope for Anthony Richardson, comparing him to Josh Allen's first 10 starts.
Yeah, and I think he keeps quarterbacks aggressive while building around their strengths and doesn't, try and build a quarterback who's, turtling into a show like, Jason Garrett development. And then if you want to go to his other part of his resume, sure, but like here's the other quarterbacks that he had. Chad Pennington, Kellen Clemens, and then Brett Favre as the Jets QB coach. Brady Quinn, Derek Anderson, and Colt McCoy as the Browns OC. Matt Moore as the Dolphins OC. And then Matt Castle and Brady Quinn as the Chiefs offensive coordinator. Like, I'm sorry that he didn't develop any of those guys into stars, even though Brett Favre was playing at a fucking MVP level until he got injured that year with the Jets. But obviously that's Brett Favre, not Brian Daboll being the QB coach that made that happen. So like the rest of the resume doesn't worry me at all, even though you could go back to Alabama, but I think Tua would have done good at Alabama with most offensive coordinators.
Say what you want about those 2011 Dolphins. Hey, those 2011 Dolphins. Remember that regular season game against the Giants? They were a pesky bunch. They started 0-7, and then they finished 6-10 on the year. So how do you like that? They finished 6-4 on the year. Matt Moore was slinging. You know what? He was slinging it in 2011. He's better than people remember. Good for Brian Daboll, offensive coordinator.
I remember him getting killed in that playoff game. Remember the Steelers player it was the same day as the Giants Packers playoff game. Remember he just got murdered.
I do.
Murder. So those are the reasons. All right, next question.
Those are the reasons. Well, here's what I want to add on to that. If there is one difference between what I think of Brian Daboll this year, and we've said this before, Brian Daboll this year versus Brian Daboll in previous years, it is kind of solidified to me that there is a gap in like the McVays of the world, where 2022, I think we were starting to put him in the same conversation, one coach of the year. There is a gap, pretty large one, between McVay, Andy Reid, the Shanahans of the world, even Kevin O'Connell. I think there's a gap between those guys and Brian Daboll at coach. Now, that doesn't mean that I think you look to get rid of Brian Daboll or that he's a bad coach or that I don't necessarily believe in him, but this is the year we're looking at who the Giants have on offense, especially with their improved offensive line, and still being this bad scoring points. And I understand a quarterback is a huge part of it, but I don't. This is the year where I finally you know what? Brian Daboll is not one of those top offensive minds like those guys, and it's tough to be one of those guys. It's tough. I thought maybe initially we did have one of those guys, but we don't. And again, I don't think that's a reason to fire Brian Daboll or not believe in Brian Daboll. I just think that there's a divide between McVay's, O'Connell's, Shanahan's, Andy Reid's.
Agreed.
So that's the main thing I learned this year about Brian Daboll. Hopefully he gets through it. The Cree, 94, because it's THE and then CHRI, almost like Chris. The Cree 94. As a relatively new listener, are the questions before an ad thought up by yourself, or are the questions from the community? And since this question answers itself as soon as you read it out, please use it as an opportunity to read out an ad. Greetings from Austria.
Well, welcome to the family from Austria. And you know what? Use SeatGeek, because thanks so much to SeatGeek for sponsoring this video. Baseball season, it's not in full swing, Justin, but the NFL season, it is in full swing. It's not even around the corner. It's here. And SeatGeek is the best place to buy tickets, Justin. What you do is you look for the green dots. Green means good, red means bad. How about that? Pretty simple, right? It's like traffic lights. Red, that is a bad light. Like, I don't care, it's for safety. No, red light is bad to me, okay? It brings up bad vibes. Green light, I love that light. And right now you can use code GIANTS10 for 10% off any tickets on SeatGeek, whether you're a new customer or not. No matter how many times you've bought tickets using SeatGeek before, GIANTS10 is going to get you 10% off your next order. So take out your phone. Whip it out. Open the SeatGeek app and add code GIANTS10 to your account. What are you waiting for? Do it now, because this offer is only available for a limited time. Code GIANTS10 for 10% off your next order. You'll be glad you did. Next question. Welcome to the family.
We don't make up these questions. People want to hear ads desperately. So we have people that ask us to read ads every week, and we appreciate those people. Don't stop.
We wouldn't do it if you didn't ask.
I know. We really wouldn't. We would say no to the money. No thank you, SeatGeek. People didn't ask. Next question. Mike at Mike Muff Master.
Oh, yeah.
How can this defense create more turnovers? Did I miss something?
Well, just his name.
Oh.
The answer is like to play different coverages, but they're not going to do that because they basically play man and cover 3, which is basically like you're running with the receiver and not looking at the quarterback and pouncing. And none of their corners have the ball skills to play that type of defense and get the football. But it is crazy. I don't care what type of defense you are. The Giants have 1 interception in 9 games.
That's from a
and
linebacker.
0 in their last 8. Like, that's unbelievable. And I love interceptions. It's one of my favorite things to break down. And I don't get to do it ever. And even the one that I did wasn't even like that good. It wasn't like this great design. It was just Dexter Lawrence got a hit because Sam Darnold's a dummy. He pops it up. Darius Moasow catches it. They just don't. It's unbelievably low. Like, think about 2022. It took them 6 weeks to get their first one against the Ravens. I think they ended up getting like 4 on the year. Let me do you this. Over under 3.5 interceptions for the Giants this year.
I'm gonna go under. There's no evidence. Are we playing bad quarterback? I'm gonna go over.
You got to go over. You got to go over.
They're
3.5.
playing bad. They're playing some bad quarterbacks that maybe will make those bad mistakes.
Yeah, and then you get backup quarterbacks start to play a little more as the season ends. So I'll go over. But like I love interceptions. They're to me they're like the most exciting play in football, and we just don't get them. And even the one that happened didn't really matter because it was in garbage time.
And also, it was from a linebacker too.
Well, hey, linebacker interceptions can be sick too, but it wasn't anything special.
Right, but it wasn't even anything special. Here's my answer. Even in 2020, where I feel like we had corners that can make plays on the football, like James Bradbury, they still were 12th. They were 12th lowest in interception rate. They had 11. They had some better safeties too. Patrick Graham ran a different defense, obviously. Here's my answer too. Bobby, I can't believe that they have an 11.5% sack rate on the year. There's only two teams in the NFL with the higher sack rate than 10%. It's both teams in New York that play in MetLife Stadium, both teams in New Jersey. The New York Jets with a 10% sack rate and the Giants with an 11.5% sack rate. They haven't forced a lot of fumbles. Now, if Dexter Lawrence is leading the league in sacks and that pressure's coming up the middle, it's less likely that you're going to get those strip sacks versus the edge rushers that are coming around the edge and they're coming from maybe behind the quarterback. Those blindside hits where you can, OCU Manure strip that ball out. So I understand the point of Dex if Dex is leading the team in sacks, but it is kind of unbelievable that the Giants leading the league in sacks, leading the league in sack rate, and they haven't even forced a lot of fumbles. So that's my answer is for these Giants pass rushers, get a little bit more aggressive. Try finding the football. Try slapping that football out. But even in the case of Azeez Ojulari, we saw it during that Bengals game where a lot of quarterbacks these days are very, very good at sack avoidance and extending plays, and you can't just nail quarterbacks anymore. Even if you get a sack now and you bring a QB to the ground too much, you're going to get flagged 15 yards. So you got to make sure that you finish a play, but maybe try forcing some fumbles, but also finish the play. Easier said than done.
Yep. Next question.
Next question is coming from Joe Smith at Giants fan in DC. Why should I keep watching the Giants? Why should I care? Another question that we get every single year at this time of the year. So Bobby Skinner, basically, I kind of want to even turn this into a player development question, or even schematics. We talked about schematics a little bit. What do you want to see? Maybe let's talk player development.
My Neighbors is great, right? So
Yeah.
don't need to see. I want to see him do great and have crazy numbers. That's fun, but I know that he's great. I don't have any doubt about that, which is a nice feeling to have.
Pivot on that. Hasn't been involved as much since he's come back from injury. What are your thoughts on that?
I think Darius Slayton has gotten a little more involved in those games. Slayton, where early on he wasn't. Teams are doubling him like crazy. Like the Commanders, they didn't double him at all week 2. They doubled him a lot in this most recent game, and they ran the ball well in the first half. So I think that's part of it. And just they're getting Slayton more involved instead of, force feeding Wandale and choice routes and stuff. And he's still been involved. Like, he has 20 catches for like 190-something yards in the last 3 games. Like, that's not great production, but that's still good wide receiver 1 production. To me, it's just picks 2, 3, 4 in this last class. Newbin, Phillips, Theo. Newbin, I think, is a good player. He made a couple big mistakes in this last game, which is the first time that's really happened to him. But I want to see him get ball production, right? There's a reason why he was brought in here. A big part of that was ball production. Phillips has struggled the last 2 weeks with some mental mistakes. Got beat in coverage a couple times by the Steelers. I mean, it wasn't just raw stats, and he's not he was playing some good football, especially against Devontae Smith. I want to see him play a little more consistent. He had some open field missed tackles, which was a worry about him this past week. And then Theo. I just want to see Theo build every week, right? Pull down those back shoulders, play with a little more confidence, get rid of the drops, clean up the route running a little bit, because you guys know how much I think Theo Johnson can be, with my tight end too in this draft class. So it's really those three guys. Like last year's class, obviously you want to see Banks start to develop, but you have good ideas of where those guys are. It's really those three guys that I'm really invested in as individual players.
Yep. I still am invested in Deonte Banks.
Me too, but he's not going to be a cornerback 1 this year, and he's going to be playing that role, so he's going to be bad.
Even with the last few weeks, with your questioning effort against Pittsburgh, and this past week was not good at all. You're allowing that ball to get behind you at the end of the first half. So the talking point that we had a couple weeks ago was, I think he could still be a CB2. Even with his play now the last 2 weeks, I'm starting to doubt that. His numbers are just not good, Bobby. So I am looking for somewhat of a recovery for Deonte Banks as we head towards the last half, last quarter of the season. He did finish the season off well last year before getting hurt and then missing, I think, the last 1 or 2 games. But I do need to. We can't give up on Deonte Banks.
They shouldn't be giving up on Deonte Banks. I think he'd be a solid cornerback too in the NFL right now. He wouldn't be this big advantage at cornerback too. So, and it's like the things he gets beat on are the things that wide receiver 1s are really well at, and he gets beat consistently on. Whether it's where it's like when you're cheating leverage, they know how to take advantage of that. And then making plays on the football when it is tight coverage, that's the difference between wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 stuff. That's the difference between Malik Neighbors and Darius Slayton, right? Would Deonte Banks, Darius Slayton just dominate Deonte Banks? I don't think so. He might win the matchup and get 4 catches for, 62 yards or something like that, but he wouldn't just dominate him and win at the point of attack. So yeah, but if there was anybody not from this draft class, it would be Banks, because I think he can still be legitimately good.
I'm excited for Kayvon to come back and see what kind of stats and numbers he can put up.
I kind of feel like I know what Kayvon is, though.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then I would say the third thing for me is, can Tyrone Tracy be an RB1? So yeah, that's like what you said with this year's draft class.
Yeah.
Can we go into 2025 being Tyrone Tracy's the main guy? Obviously, you want guys to complement in a backfield that's not a superstar led like Saquon Barkley, but can Tyrone Tracy, can we head into next year with being this guy's an RB1 and we feel good about that? That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, just if it gets disastrous, that makes for good TV. Hopefully not, but watch for that too.
I know, but there are even fans out there that are like, well, I want to watch the Giants. I want to watch for something. What should I watch for? And I think we did a solid job laying that out.
Watch for us. How about that?
Watch for us. Speaking of watching for us, Joe Mama called. Joe Mama said, my mama said, can whichever one gets elected force Joe Shane to read an ad? And oh boy, he can, because Captain Morgan. Joe Mama loves Captain Morgan, and this episode is brought to you by Captain Morgan, the official spice rum of the NFL. The NFL season is where legends are born on and off the field. Some are last second place, some are Joe Mama, and I gotta stop. Some are last second place that turn the tide and change a team's destiny, while others are friends who follow the captain from within to make a regular get-together into the stuff of legends. Are you having an election get-together tonight with any friends? That was a conversation around the office today, is that some people were gonna get together, have some captains with their buddies tonight, and make it an election night to remember. Are you a fan of that?
Yeah, so I'm watching with my fiance. Here's the thing: is I just don't want to listen to everyone's political opinions.
So that's why you
know what I
have
mean?
Captain Morgan, and then you drown it out.
That's true.
But then it gets
That's
funny.
true. But
And
it's
you're
like,
like, ha-ha.
I like to just laugh. Like people are like, oh, I watch this channel. I switch between all of them. Like I just give them each like a few 5-10 minutes, switch between all of them, and see who's melting down. Basically, whoever loses, I want to watch that one's channel.
Yeah. I mean, you have enough Captain Morgans responsibly, then you'll forget what channel you're even watching. So visit followthecaptain.com for more. Please drink responsibly, like I said. Captain Morgan Original Spice Rum, 35% alcohol by volume. Captain Morgan Rum Company in New York, New York. Bobby Skinner, you will be glad you did.
We're glad you did. Next question.
Next question. This is something that I'm glad Big Blue Hulk asked, because it's something that we talk about somewhat often, and I want to get another veteran on the show. Maybe even talk to Tiki again about this if we get him on. At Big Blue Hulk, do you think Daboll needs more vets in the locker room in general? He has been very player-friendly and hesitant to discipline players. Is it possible losing the vets molded under Judge after the 2022 season and replacing them with young players is a bad fit for this type of coach?
I mean, what's like? What do you think what's the answer to that question?
I
know that's a male like. It's like, do you sign different players because they're veterans and your coach is a little more like laissez-faire with player discipline?
I think it revolves having proven players that have accomplished something in this league.
Yeah, and they're just not a good team, which means they don't have good players and good veterans who have been here for a long time. And you have and that's why like on Sunday's show, I was like, Dexter Lawrence, you're a captain, you've been the longest tenured player, you're great at your position. So you're not just in a position of, captaincy or coaching because of your title. Like, you are someone that gains their respect. Go talk to him, right? Go talk great player to great player. And I interviewed Brandon Jacobs before I was even doing this show, Justin. And it was actually talking about it was right after the Odell interview. And I was like, place that in your guys' locker. He's like, one, that would have never happened. He's like, two, that we would have handled that shit. Like, there's no way we would have let anything like that happen, and we would have 100% dealt with it. Like, that would have not flied with us. So they've put together a youth movement, and that's it. But here's the thing: is like, there's no locker room issues right now, or at least that we know of.
No. But also at the same time, I feel like there's got to be a lack of accountability. I mean, if you're this bad, now this is me saying it. I'm not in there. As a fan, I want to say there's a lack of accountability. But really, like, Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence, I feel like have taken the mantle of being leaders. Like, Burns really took Kayvon Thibodeau under his wing this offseason. That was great, and they've called for accountability. But, like, especially on the offensive side of the ball, Greg Van Roten is the one that's trying to fire this offense up and get everybody rallied together. And I remember that being a thing where Greg Van Roten gave like a, we got to be better speech at one point. Like, really? Like that's the guy? So I don't know, man. Like, don't get me wrong. And we've talked about on Bleeding Blue, the Giants History podcast that Snacks and I did. So we talk about the lore of the 2007 to 2011 teams, the leaders that they had. Justin Tuck, 2011, Michael Strahan in 2007. Obviously Jacobs was a leader too as time went on, but in 2006, the year before they won the Super Bowl, that was not a locker room full of angels. That was a team in disarray. I mean, that was a team where you had Plaxico Burress and Michael Strahan almost fighting each other after that Tennessee Titans game where Vince Young scrambles all over the place and Matthias Kiwanuka can't make a tackle, where Burress was calling out the defense, Strahan wanted to fucking fight him. So, that was not a locker room full of angels at all. But overall, it just felt like they were able to police each other and hold each other accountable.
When you win games. When you lose, like, again, that's the root of all issues, and the team is losing games.
Yeah.
So, but I don't view like, if they had more vets, this would be better. I think they don't have enough good players, and their quarterback has been bad for the majority of the season. And they don't have a ton of talent all over the place. So
yeah,
that's the reality to me. And they lost their franchise left tackle.
Yeah, I almost wish that I just don't think this is Andrew Thomas's personality or his attitude, but I don't get the sense that he is much more of a lead by example guy than a vocal leader. He's not the one talking in the locker room.
But even his position group doesn't need a ton of leadership either. O-linemen kind of just do their shit.
Yeah, they gel together, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's been something that's been on my mind. And we've talked about it a couple times as the years have gone on with the players that we've had on. And I think it is something that's worth talking about and always exploring as the years go on.
If they draft better, they'll get more vets, but they've drafted awfully.
It's true. All right, Bobby, ready for the last question?
Last question.
Joe Lagrippo at Joe_Lagrippo. Which current Giant would make the best president and who would be the VP?
Do we have to factor in trying to win? Or are we just placing them in there?
I think who would do the best job?
Best job would be Bobby Okereke.
Oh, hell yeah.
But here's the thing. I think if you want to win, you put Tommy DeVito as president.
No, you put him at VP as like a feel-good VP.
No, Tommy DeVito's like, he's got pop, right? It's a name thing. He's a national icon.
I think people would see through it.
And then you put Bobby Okereke at VP.
I think it's the opposite. I think you put Bobby Okereke as president because at the end of the day,
I prefer Okereke as president, but I think if we're trying to win, it's all about name pop, name recognition. Tommy DeVito at the top, Bobby Okereke is the vice president.
Deontay Banks would be a hilarious president. Like utterly hilarious. Him talking is very funny. Tyrone Tracy would be also he's a guy that he has media aspirations too. I could see him being a smooth talker, a good talker. Jermaine Alamunor.
He's not born in America.
He's not?
Nope.
Well, if he was, did he not win over the hearts of Giants fans this offseason? That's what Jermaine did, just tweeting out, I love being here, like every day. Who else? Tyrone Tracy.
I think that's kind of it.
Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton is basically Switzerland.
No.
He's Switzerland.
Slayton wouldn't be a good president.
No, Brian Dunleavy announced today that he's going to vote for him as the media good guy. He announced it.
He shouldn't have announced that so early.
I know.
Who else would even be
president? Dex.
Be funny to have someone as short as Wan'Dale Robinson be president.
Can't you see? It would be. Can't you? They would have to shorten all the podiums. Can't you see Kayvon Thibodeau? Kayvon Thibodeau in a way already is like a politician.
Yeah, because he thinks he's playing everybody by you could Kayvon would be good at it.
Kayvon's already.
But Kayvon would say too much dumb shit that would drive people nuts too. They'd be like, "Yeah, this is good," and then every sixth thing, it'd be like, "All right, dude, we get it."
There's a lot of people saying dumb shit in politics.
You're a philosopher. Oh, that is also very true. But anyways, let's end this show. We'll see you on Friday for a Panthers preview. How about that? Giants are headed to freaking Germany. We'll see you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.